So what have we got up our sleeve for you guys today? Well, okay, anybody that's been watching the channel for a while knows that Miles, Sue, and Mark are predominantly a travel channel. We like to go places and see things. But we've been a snowbird for 3.5 months here. We're getting ready to start moving, and we're changing over our water filtration and water softening equipment. And we're going to take you along and show you what we're changing from and what we're changing to. Come on, let's get going. I've been literally laying in bed at night wondering how I'm going to show you this, because it's a menagerie of pipes and hoses and stuff, and over the years I've changed my method of doing things so that things are lighter or less messy or whatever. You're going to wonder when you're looking at mine, you're going, oh, well, I wouldn't do it that way. Well, I got news for you. I haven't done it this way for a while either, and this has been a new evolution. So let me show you what we've been using and how it's all been connected. And then what we're going to do is going to talk about the new equipment I'm changing to, and then I'm going to spend a couple hours getting it right, and then I'll show you it after I got it right, because I don't want to waste your time. But what we have is we have a 0G hose that brings the water over to my setup so I can do what I got to do. Now you're going to go, Mark, how come you have it so far away? Well, normally I would have it maybe about here, but I've got to stay out of the way of my slide. Remember, the slide comes all the way over and my wet bay's underneath there. The reason I'm bringing that up is with the 0G hoses, you have a choice of only as small as 25 feet. So all of your hoses always have to be 25 feet or the 50-foot increment. I'm here to tell you, 50 foot is almost always too long. 25 feet is almost always a little bit long or perfect. With the system that I'm changing to, the Blu Technology system, we're going to talk about the fact that you can get them in much smaller length increments. And once I show you the setup after I figure out what I'm going to do, you're going to see that the hoses from my wet bay here, it's going to be a lot more logical. When the water comes from the 0G to my setup, I had used Gorilla locking quick disconnects. So I bring the water in, and at this point I have a Y connection, and this hose here brings the water in to my dual canister Clearsource water system. The water comes out, goes through this hose here. This is a Camco hose. These are the smallest ones I could find. I got to be honest with you, I don't like these. They're too stiff. I get a couple of two years or so out of them. I go through my on-the-go water softener, which you can see is, I don't know, 8 years old now. Is that 8 years?
Going on, yeah.
Going on 8 years. This pressure valve here finally measures the pressure into my rig for our domestic water. I just showed you this path for the water. This path for the water here is to allow, when this is shut, this is just a pressure relief for me. When I send the water this way and I check the pressure, I don't filter this water, because you'll notice this goes and connects to my black tank rinse. Is that I've kind of got a mess here, and I've got to manage them by always keeping them stretched out so that they don't ever kink. I can say that my Clearsource water filter setup here, you'll notice I just have 2 cylinders. It has been reliable, but it's very heavy because this is steel, and it's starting to get rusty on the bottom, and it's kind of a pain to lug this around. because it is so heavy, because it's steel and it's not cut out, and it's kind of not engineered, I would almost say conveniently, for an RVer that is just moving this around all the time. Now there's plenty of folks that have mounted this inside the rig. If you got the room, more power to you. Our on-the-go water softener, for the 8 years we've had it, it has also been reliable. Certainly not going to bash this company just because I'm going to another company, but this is very weather checked, and it probably is in need of needing to have new resin put in it because it's 8 years old, and I don't want to invest the time and money to do that. The only criticism I have of this on-the-go, and I told the company this many times, so I don't feel bad telling you about it, these handles that they sell you are some kind of a goofy handle with a fused together little hole in it and then a handle that goes around. And you'll notice, you go, hey Mark, well that looks like a pretty bomb-proof and awesome handle there. And you are correct, except for the fact that I made this by buying 3 of their handles and putting 3 of them on here and twisting them together and doing this. And the reason you want to do that is if you just have one handle and the day this baby lets go and this thing falls on your ankle and busts that front metatarsal part of your ankle, you're going to have an issue. This handle's about $8 or $9 per, so you've got $27 worth of fading in the sun handle here. Yes, if I was a stick and brick, I would have made my own handle. This is the Achilles heel, I think, of this whole setup, as well as the fact that to recharge it, you have to take this cap off, and then on the inside, there's a very restrictive amount of room for you to put the salt in. The Clearsource that I had at the time, I only bought the 2 canister unit. And I'm glad I did because it was so heavy. And Sue's the one that ultimately moves it back and forth 90% of the time because we divide up our jobs. But very quickly I could see that I really couldn't use this 3rd filter here as the 3rd filter in my system. Remember, I bought Clearsource with 2. I had this one. I thought, well, what do I need 3 for? Because I got one here. I'm here to tell you that when you have built on this cheap plastic board here, you have this built-in filter here, yanking around on this when it's on plastic and making sure that you don't have a leak here with this O-ring, it proved to be problematic. So the day that I was able to take the filter out, always leave it empty, always leave it tight, never disturb it, that was the best thing for me. So I, in effect, for 8 years, have been operating on only a 2 filter system. It's been okay for us, but I always thought I would like something a little bit better. The other thing we've done in the past is I've had this 90-degree brass fitting in the 2 spots. This is my sewer rinse. This is my supply water from the city. I leave this connected. I never disturb this connection because this is the cheap OEM fitting that if you use it more than 10 times, it starts leaking. Well, if you attach it once, you still got 9 times left in the bag. I also played a little game where this particular hose here, the 0G, for my supply water, I never disconnected this. I put pipe tape on here. I left this connection in place, and I don't have a cable reel on this particular model RV, so I would take this and I would just shove it in the corner here. You'll also notice that I don't have this conveniently connected like this so that I'm ready to rinse. I'm ready to sewer rinse every time I need to. I got news for you, buddy. You hook this up permanently all the time, you are going to forget that this is running, and you're going to go to Walmart. And when you come back, you're going to have a swimming pool in your lot. When I leave the wet bay area, I'm expecting this hose to always be there because I don't ever want to fill my black tank remotely because there's no overflow except for the one that's conveniently located on the roof and you will have product coming out on the roof. So be very careful when you're using it. Save a drop. Yeah, you know, a gauge to be able to tell me how many gallons are going into my black tank. Very, very important. I have the Blu Technologies equivalent to this. It's super high quality compared to this one. Don't quite know where I'm going to put that in the system yet. If I have, it's fairly large and it's fairly heavy. If I don't like it hanging on here, I might leave the plastic one on here and I might put the fancy one outboard. I thought, you know, after 8 years, good enough, let's start over, and we have the opportunity to bring this setup with you. We've kind of partnered with Blu Technologies. They've supplied a lot of this equipment for us so that we can talk about it. And quite honestly, we have an assortment here that's good enough that I should be able to do our system and maybe even half of somebody else's. Now, the first thing I want to show you is that if you can zoom in there, Sue, you can see how many of those detent balls are in there. And there's actually 8 of those balls versus the 4 that we have right now. But I standardized on the Gorilla one where you would put the fitting together and then you would rotate it until it locks. And I liked that, but that might have been because it only has 4 detent balls. And you can visualize that when you're putting this thing together, if 3 of the balls are sort of engaged but not the 4th one, you're kind of in the 3-legged stool mode where it can decide to grab and then become a 4-ball connection, or it can eject itself and you have a massive leak. So I think this was a big step in the right direction for Blu Technologies to go with the 8-ball setup, and maybe they don't need that lock. Now I put this on my hose bib, and then that's when I grab the 25-foot long hose that they offer and provide. You can see that they come with the extra fittings included on the ends. We have the hose bringing the water over to our setup here. And the first thing we want to do is we want to go through the rough filter, the bacterial filter, and then one that improves the taste. Remember, right now, I only have these 2 filters because I erroneously thought that my 3rd one, which was already installed in my Newmar, I thought that that would be useful, and it has proven not to be because it's too hard to work on, too much water gets in the rig, it's plastic, and it's too hard to keep it from leaking. So I'm really happy that now I'm going to this 3-filter setup, and I'm still going to leave the one in my rig empty. Let's talk about these filters. To get them on and off, rather than using a wrench that grabs the outside flutes of this, like on the Clearsource one, and you kind of have a propensity to over tighten that one, what this one has is basically nothing more fancy than a pin that fits in to this ring here, and then righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Now the first filter is called Longevity, and it's 5 micron, and that's just to get the chunks out. So when you're in a campground, you don't want any big particles coming into your system and causing havoc down the road. The second one is actually a 0.2. Actually, I'll get to that in a second. We haven't been running that tight, so theoretically we're going to have a lot safer water when we go to this system. And then this one here is a granulated carbon filter that's for taste, and that will be the last filter we go through before we send the water to the rig. Filters like the BluTech, they're NSF and ANSI 42/61 certified. That all of the ANSI and the ASTM, all of these engineering standards are unbelievably stringent. And you can't slap that on your filter unless it's had a lot of expensive testing and has proved itself in the manufacturing process to repeatedly be a filter that is good. So in my setup, I was taking out the big chunks and then taking out some of the little ones. And then from then on, the only thing that was making our water one more level safe was the fine filter that we have in our refrigerator and the Activa ultraviolet light setup that we love and we still use to this day. But it's our understanding that that company has underwent an ownership change, and right now if I wanted to replace that, I would not be able to. The Blu Technologies version of the UV water disinfecting system that actually sits on your counter in your kitchen, we have that to show you. That'll be a separate video. I don't want to mix it up with what we're talking about right now. Since we've never done this before, we don't exactly know how we would do this. That's how it is. It's a nice metal case. You can see it's got a nice rolled lip on it. And then this collar here, real positive. I can see these O-rings here. Let's call it an O-ring, but it's really not. You can see it is a ring, but it's certainly not an O. It's a rectangular shaped, and I can tell you that I've gotten to the point where about once a year I've been having to replace the O-rings on my Clearsource, and it's been getting harder and harder to get a seal. Understandably, it's older and older, 8 years old. I've been cranking away at that plastic and everything. It looks like the seal for this is not so much dependent on you cranking the heck out of it as it is having a decent O-ring like this. And these are replacement parts that you can get. So you can see they probably all look the same. And it's a real nice Bakelite type plastic arrangement. All right, let's put this, see if the Chan Man can put this on in real time. Hopefully you're not laying in the mud. And we just screw this on here. It's a real positive, heavy-duty, bomb-proof feeling ring. And then you just give this thing a couple of these, and then I'll give it a tug, and I'm calling it tight. Fancy bag that comes with it. It has a front pocket on it, so that when you're done wrapping your hoses up and things, you can put your hoses in. You can put your key probably in this little pocket that they got in the front here. It looks like that's for a key. It would keep all the dirt and debris and sand from getting all over everything. It does have a zip here for the top, so you can put your hand in and grab it when you're going if you want to do it that way. Or it does have handles this way. It has a pocket for your water coming in and your water going out. I have been using this style of pressure gauge since we've started. And the way you adjust it is you use a screwdriver. You use a screwdriver and you turn this screw, and it either raises or decreases the amount of pressure that is allowed from the inlet going to the outlet. Now, the ones that I've used in the past, before I knew what I was doing, I would just get one that looked like this and I'd buy it. And I would buy it based on price. Well, guess what? They weren't necessarily drinking water safe because they weren't lead-free. Well, then I started to go to the lead-free ones, but they're mostly low lead because they're brass, and it's pretty tough to get no lead out of the brass ones. It is substantially heavier than the ones that I'm getting. This whole setup is stainless, just like in keeping with the rest of everything. Now, I'm going to try to duplicate the setup that I have there that I showed you in the beginning of the video. So that means I'm going to need a splitter. And this is the fancy splitter that's available by GoBluTech. I was going to probably say I should call it GoBluTech.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, what's different about this thing? Yeah, you'll immediately notice this. You can face things all different ways. So I'm really excited to see how I can integrate this into my setup here. You can get the Blu Technologies stainless steel braided hoses in 5-foot versions, 10-foot versions, the 25-foot version, I think 17-inch this is. This thing is a possible replacement for that cheap flow meter that I showed you in the past. And this one allows you to change all sorts of different liters, gallons. I believe this will not only tell me the number of gallons, but I thought I read that this will give me a flow rate. But this thing's pretty awesome, pretty fancy. I gotta be honest with you. What really grabbed me was this handle. And, you know, a person certainly could fashion, I should say, your own style of handle like this to take care of the deficiency that's on the go. We have on the go, and I hated that handle. This is a great improvement. It says you spin this top off. I have never been in here or looked in here. This thing with the real delicate slits in it, on the on-the-go unit that I have, this stays in place along with this tube, and that's why it's so difficult to access to get the salt in there. If you look in here so you can see how much volume there is to be able to dump one Morton salt type box, that's 1 pound of salt. Take a look at the resin. That's how your resin should look when it's brand new. Show this weld, how high quality it is, how it's stitched, and you can tell, you know, that this is a stainless steel outside, and I can tell you that this ring is super bomb-proof. Now, when you're done delighting folks with that, honey, show them this ring here, this whatever that color is, reddish oranges.
Yeah, like an orange.
Yeah,
Oh.
very, very wide stance, and that in fact is butting up to this flat surface all the way around. So let's see how easy it is to get this lined up, because I'm burying that prong in the media. It seems like, oh yeah, went in much easier without the resin being on the threads. When I snap my fingers, we're going to be at that segment where I'm showing you exactly what it looks like now. I've got this ultra heavy duty stainless steel coupling here that came with the fitting that goes to the faucet. And you can also see that we're energized and we don't have any leaks. All of the leaks that you see here actually were when we were disconnecting the other stuff. So now you can see that I have a more correct sized 25-foot hose that comes over to this area. And I have kind of an odd setup here, but you know what? We got used to it like this. So the reason I didn't hook this up when we were filming the other day is I wanted to come up with a way that this can lay on our unit and I don't scratch this anodizing up and completely hose up this, you know, beautiful contraption I got here. So anybody that's watched the channel for a while can recognize that this is a Fifi. Now, I probably would have taken a thinner one if I was doing it the first time around, but I didn't have a thinner one. All I had was these thick ones, and you know what? I'm going to give you an OGym pro tip. Okay, so you can imagine that when we disconnect all this and we're throwing it in the rig, you're going to want to take this framework and you want to flip it upside down to let it drain. That way, all of the volume in each of these filters can drain out through the hole. But this hole and this fitting and this mechanism that's in there is so close to this surface that if you're in a sandy environment, you could end up getting, you know, contaminants into this fitting. So just by happenstance, the only thing I have laying around being this thick, I'm thinking it's going to be awesome, because when it comes time to empty it, I'll disconnect it, roll it over, it'll be, you know, an extra 1.5 inches off the surface. And when it's empty and light enough, my wife will pick it up because she does all the heavy lifting. All right, so now our 25-foot hose comes in. The other thing you'll notice that I did different from the last connection, the last time I thought I was clever, I came in directly and I ran full pressure through the filters and everything, and I had a regulator here right before I went into the rig. When I read the directions on the BluTech filter setup, they wanted you to limit the pressure to like 70 pounds in this unit here. And that's probably them covering themselves to make sure that you have something there so that you don't damage your rig. This may or may not be rated for hire for that, but I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to go back to the more normal method of only having one of these gauges. We're trying to simplify it. Water comes in, I check the pressure, I can go out and around, nice short hose, high quality, goes into my filters, goes through my filters, wraps around, goes through my water softener, and then goes to the rig. And you're going, Mark, what the heck is the rest of this menagerie? Well, okay, when it comes time to flush my black tank, I can choose to close this. This is just a little pressure relief. Close this, turn this on, and turn this on to flush my black tank. And when I'm done, I can shut the water off to the black tank, and I can open this one up to relieve a little pressure, and then I can shut everything. I found that by introducing a port here to reduce pressure in the system when I'm disconnecting things, I get a lot less wet over the years. Plus, it turned out it was kind of a bonus. Sue can come here and water her plants by putting her jug or whatever here. So everything's happy. So you'll notice here that I still have this old hose here. And I certainly could buy an additional 25-foot stainless steel braided if I wanted to be awesome and look good. But you know what? There's something extra special about having your black tank hose black. So just from a color coding standpoint, and the fact that I have a whole bunch of these left over from my old system, these fittings here are an unbelievable step up from what I had been using. Now, I'm not going to badmouth these Gorilla fittings because up until I found these from Blu Technologies, these Gorilla ones were pretty awesome, where it's a drinking water safe brass, pull it back. Yeah, it's a locking mechanism, and you kind of got to get used to it. I could tell you that they're a lot harder to put together when you don't have a hose connected on it. But I really liked them, okay? And I liked the lock feature. But we talked about this in the beginning of this video, that there's only 4 balls in here, okay? And I can tell from taking these apart many, many times over the years that these babies with the 8 balls, you can see them all the way around. When this baby goes together, it ain't going anywhere. This don't need a locking twist. And the locking twist is kind of a pain, okay? I mean, it's probably a lot cheaper than this setup here because this is all stainless steel. But you never seem to know, is it locked, is it unlocked, and you're doubting yourself. So way better than what I had, and what I had was good. These are superior. What I did not use in this setup was the Blu Technologies 3-way valve. Now, part of the problem was this goofy setup I have. You know, if a normal person was putting this together and only needed 3 hoses and didn't need, you know, this monkey business that I have here, and who knows, maybe I could have made it work, but I liked this angle that kind of kept this in place here, and I had gotten used to this. probably could have used this, but here's the real corker for me. I'm 73 years old, and for the most part, many times when I would try to turn that, I couldn't turn it. Like that one right now. Now that it turned, it's easy. But I'm here to tell you that if I left it 2 hours from now, maybe tomorrow, I wouldn't be able to turn it again. And I struggle with that. And I just thought, you know what? If I don't like it, I got to tell you honestly that for me, somebody that's got arthritic hands, it didn't work for me. I was quite excited to use these actually because I thought one of these could actually go over the edge for me here. You know, that would have worked. And then because this goes around the back to go in, I thought, hey, that baby can go like this. And I can take, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities on this thing. But like I said, for me, this was the showstopper. I'm telling you, if Blu Technologies ends up putting handles like this, that you can actually, you know, rotate them or knobs or something, this thing is going to be space shuttle quality. In the past, what I have had was this cheap plastic one. And it's so cheap that I didn't even buy it. Got it from my good friend, Cindy, from the Stuck video, somebody that we traveled with. And this particular unit is a Save-A-Drop, but it's plastic and never really liked it, but it does the job. And it's very light. Now, the reason I did not put this on yet is I didn't want to take the time to take this fitting off and put this on. But I'm going to fiddle around and take some of the ones that I have in my little bay here, and I want to gauge on if I want to put this extra weight. These are so industrial quality that they're very heavy. And you know, my $600,000 Newmar with this little plastic, I don't know if I want all that extra weight bouncing down the road on these threads, especially when this has been in successfully for a number of years. So I just connected to this. Bomb-proof, really excellent. You got something cheap like this that this part is going into, you might want to rethink it. Which brings up the last thing. This is probably the nicest flow meter I've ever seen. And it has the ability to measure not only the number of gallons that you've used or whatever unit of measure you want to use, but you can also press the buttons and it will measure the flow rate. Now, when I have time to fool around with this, I will probably go on that end and measure things coming in and going out. And who knows, I might be able to tell when it's time to change my filters here rather than think in my mind, oh, I wonder if I should, you know, change the filters, wonder what the flow rate is. But I didn't dare put this in place here, which was my original thought when I was looking in the catalog and I ordered this, is really heavy. I mean, this is all really, you know, stainless, don't know what this is. So I'm almost tempted that when I have the time and I'm in Milwaukee, I might come up with some type of a hard mount. We are really impressed with the quality of everything when we put this thing together. It seems that it is way more streamlined. This might be the more correctly sized, certainly much nicer for lugging it around here with this nice handle compared to the one that we had before, you know. But size comes at the expense of capacity. I wanted to mention that this is 10,000 grains. The one that we got rid of, I believe, was 12,000 grains. So that's the rating for a water softener. More grains, it lasts longer. You don't have to recharge it quite as often. I want to reiterate that you'll notice that this is the bigger of the units. It's the big 3 filters rather than the smaller ones. The reason I did that is Sue and I have gotten used to replacing these filters every 3 months. It's almost like clockwork. We'll start to lose flow rate. It's always the most finest filter that ends up clogging things up. But the minute we don't have any flow, we come out here and replace those, and sure enough, it's like the 3-month mark. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this honest review. We do not have any history on this thing. We literally just hooked it up 3-4 hours ago. Nothing's leaking. We expect it to work like a dream. I can tell you the quality of the equipment and putting it together and the streamlined look of it is pretty awesome. As we get some time on it, we'll update on the channel. That's one of the reasons you might want to subscribe. Anything that we're always talking about, we always try to bring up or point out different things along the way. Until we see you on the road or in a campground someday, or maybe in about 3 or 4 weeks when we're at the next 4 repair shops we're at, come and say hi to us. And in the meantime, check us out most Sunday mornings for another episode of our journey in miles.